All right, thanks everyone for coming and joining us for about an hour of chit chat. So to begin, I'd like to say thanks for coming. And then in the next 35 to 45 minutes, we'll share 5 topics. One is around what's expected in each industry. 2 is around how we got our first job. 3rd is around our most vulnerable moments and failure stories. 4 are around the implications of the current situation. And 5th is around the advice for our fellow students for the summer. So to start off the conversation, let's just introduce ourselves a little bit so we can have the audience understand more of our background and our professional journey. Ali, you seem excited. Do you want to go first?
Sure, happy to do it. First of all, I'd like to reiterate on welcoming everyone and saying that we're very excited to present this. But for a quick introduction about myself, my name is Ali. I was born and raised in Morocco in North Africa, and I came in Toronto in 2014. In 2014-2015, I did the International Foundation Program to refine my English before starting at U of T, studying applied mathematics. Then I did my internships mostly in technology and finance. I did my first year summer at a startup called DESA. Then I did second year summer at Manulife in actuarial science. Then I worked at Goldman Sachs in my 3rd year. And then I joined management consulting after graduation, where I've been working since September now at Bain & Company.
Wow, I pick up a few keywords saying Bain, Goldman Sachs, and startups. We'll dive into those a bit later, not now. Why don't we have Nandana introduce herself?
Yeah, also, I just want to reiterate, thank you to everyone for being here with us today. We really appreciate your time. So to start off, I was born and raised in India, and I first learned how to code when I was in about 8th grade, and that's when I knew that I wanted to take computer science as my major in undergrad. And during undergrad, in the 3rd year, I realized that I wanted to learn more and also get the exposure of living in another country. So I came to the US in 2017 to get my master's in computer science. And after a year of grad school, I got the opportunity to work on Bloomberg's Android application during the summer. And I went back to school and I graduated last year in about June. And after that, I joined a very early stage startup. And now I'm working as a software engineer at Amazon.
Oh, thank you. I hear Amazon and also hear Bloomberg. And that's actually where I met Nandana. So I like your experience. And then Brian, do you want to tell us more about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I'd like to start by saying thank you all for joining us today. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Brian. I am Egyptian. I immigrated to Canada for high school, grade 11, grade 12, and then I joined the University of Toronto, did electrical and computer engineering. I had a couple of interesting experiences, a startup experience, extracurricular experiences, and a few internships, mostly related to technology. And I actually have an interesting story about how I completely switched majors and it took a 180-degree turn, leading me to where I currently am at Google as a machine learning engineer. But yeah, I can share that story with you guys in a bit.
Yeah, I'll share also how Brian helped me get into Google. So finally, it's my story time. I think my journey is similar to many of our audience here. I was born and raised in China, and I was there until 17 years old. I was enrolled in a term called 普通高中. So there was nothing special about me. After college, I decided to do what I think I did well, which is math and engineering. So did robotics, and for the first summer, I couldn't find an internship, which is tough. So I was so bored at home, so I decided to start a startup to help other students prepare for exams. After a startup, I was able to start my professional journey and did an internship in Toronto, and later I was able to join Google in Silicon Valley, spent a summer in New York at Bloomberg. But finally, I thought about what really inspired me and what made me feel great was the part of entrepreneurship. I wanted to go back to that.
刚才开了什么东西？怎么会？
We have a very excited audience. So to continue my story, I was excited to go back to business. So I wanted to explore the business world, for which I'm going to join McKinsey & Company in Toronto. So that's my story as well as the stories of our panelists. So I want to quickly summarize of the key things or cool things I heard about. Number one was the brand names. I hear Google, Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, Amazon, Bain, and more names. And second, which is super fascinating, is that we're all international students. So we share a lot with our audience. And the third was, sounds like the start wasn't easy for any of us. Someone did a startup, someone did a free internship. So before we dive in, I just have this idea that's striking me. I think it'd be great to do a few one-on-one calls with our fellow audience and see what they're thinking, how they're feeling. I'd be personally down to do it. How about you guys? Do you think we should spend a few minutes with our audience to listen to their stories?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. All right. So for our audience, I'm thinking if you stay until the end, we're gonna share a. Sorry for being a bit selfish there. I love the attention. To share a Google form. If you can fill it up tonight, we'll be able to learn about your background. And then tonight, we're gonna send out a bunch of invites so you can use Calendly to schedule a 25-minute call with us. And we'll be happy to talk about your background, our background, and whatever we can help with. So with that, I actually have a few questions for the audience. Is what do you think is most helpful in our one-on-one calls? So I'm gonna launch a poll. Feel free to put in whatever thoughts you have. Can everyone see the poll or? Oh, now we're seeing it.
It's fluctuating a lot.
Yeah. Now, according impactful professional experience is taking the lead.
Yeah, it's like reverse order. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Interesting. That's
yeah.
Well, the main takeaway is nobody really cares about us.
No.
So I'm gonna end the poll and then show the poll results. So you can see that people want to learn about how to get impactful professional experience, which is great. So I think the next part we really want to talk about is our different paths and different backgrounds, right? We hear banking, we hear consulting, we hear tech, but what does each industry do? I never heard of word of consulting until I was in my 3rd year, and I was pretty blank when I heard a word. So maybe we can spend a few minutes to talk about what each industry is. So maybe Ali, can you tell us about what banking really does, or more specifically, what investment banking does?
Sure, happy to do it. In investment banking is essentially helping large companies with financial decisions. So what this can come down to is a lot of different potential solutions, ranging from if a company wants to do a merger or an acquisition, how do you structure a deal such that make sure that it will position you towards a higher growth in the future? Or equally, if a company is not doing well and needs to restructure their finances, or they need to take a certain loans, how do you take the right loan? And it's all the solutions that are around making better financial decisions for the company.
Fantastic. So what are they looking for in the candidates?
They're looking for a couple of things. It is a pretty competitive industry. However, the good news is that a lot of people can access to it. And I'm sure that everyone in the audience would have a shot for it. And in terms of specific, what they look for is like, 1, very good leadership skills. Number 2, they want to make sure that you're a team player because you end up working a lot in a team during your job. And lastly, they want to make sure that you're someone that can come up with the right solutions. So this could be shown like a couple of different ways. One way is you just say, okay, I have a high GPA. Or another way could just be to show that you've always been creative in your experiences and based on that, come up with the right solutions to complex problems. Then lastly, a little bit more than consulting, I guess, that they want to see an interest in finance. So it's important that your experiences are geared towards it, at least to an extent.
Fantastic. I hear leadership, I hear interest in finance. I think I'm going to share consulting next. And then
Sure.
because there's a lot of overlap. From my perspective, consulting is helping clients solve their most challenging business problems, and could be anything ranging from a company wants to acquire another, some company wants to improve their profitability, or even a nonprofit that wants to improve their impact. And I think, for example, McKinsey is looking for 4 things in a candidate. And I will take notes if you're a candidate for McKinsey. Number 1 is your personal impact. Number 2 is leadership abilities. Number 3, problem-solving skills. And number 4, entrepreneurial drive. These sound really vague, right? So let me dive in a little bit of what each means. Personal impact means, have you done something aspirational? Have you done something that's impressive? Have you made really a big impact to the people around you? Second, around entrepreneurial drive. It does not mean that you must have built a startup from scratch. No, what that means is, have you tried to use innovative approaches to existing problems, or have you looked at new problems? Third, around problem-solving skills. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's applicable to all industries. Last but not least, it's around the leadership abilities. Are you able to drive a vision, share it, align a team behind it, and execute that vision? So if you have these 4 pillars, I believe McKinsey would be open to bring you on, but that's only my personal opinion. So on the note of problem solving, I want to hand it over to Brian to talk about what tech is really looking for.
Yeah, thank you, Henry. So there's a lot of overlap between these different industries, especially for new grad positions. But for technology in general, let me share sort of insights from the inside on what Google specifically, at least, looks for in candidates. So Google, yeah, you take notes, Henry. Okay. So Google has this checklist sort of where they give you points for different things they see on your resume, and it all comes down again to demonstrating leadership, team working, entrepreneurial drive, and intellectual aptitude. So things like extracurricular activities, or a project where you were the lead and you maybe managed a team of 2, 3, 4 people. Projects where you had some impact, where your personal role actually resulted in something that you can talk about, that you can share. So yeah, things like entrepreneurial experiences. Maybe you started a startup with a friend, or just had an idea and worked on it for a few weeks. Things like online coding projects. Professional experience is also really important, but there's if you're lacking significant professional experience, there's always ways to get around that, and we can talk about that more. But yeah, the general sort of theme is leadership, team working, initiative, drive, all those keywords, I guess. Yeah, Nandana, actually, how about you share some insights from Amazon? I mean,
yeah, yes, I'm going to do my best. So Amazon actively tests for leadership principles. So a couple of them are customer obsession, and one is centered around inventing, and another is again centered around ownership. So it's pretty similar to what they test for at Google, but I think one difference is that they make sure that each of those principles are covered during the on-site interview, or even during the 2nd or 3rd round. Or you might get questions asked even during your 1st round, during the behavior interviews. So yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. There's like a consensus between all industries in terms of, leadership, impactful experience, and yeah, just showing that drive and that passion towards that specific industry. And of course, CS fundamentals.
Yeah, algorithms, data
everyone
structures.
Yeah.
I hope everyone took notes because we had a lot of juicy content right there. But I think to summarize, in case you missed it, I think there are 4 things. And sorry for being so structured. I've been trained this way by Ali. Number 1 is you are more well-positioned to have impressive professional experience on your resume or impactful experiences. And number 2 is around problem-solving skills. No matter you're in consulting or finance or tech, you gotta solve problems. Third is soft skills. I think this is undervalued by a lot of candidates. It's around how you communicate, how you show empathy towards others, how do you lead a team, and how do you work on a team. Last but not least is the technical skills. They're specific to your industry, right? These are great skills, and in order to reinforce your memory on these, I'm gonna launch a poll to see where are people really concerned with their skills. All right, let's see the result.
I like this part, it's fun.
All right, we got soft skills.
This is like 100%.
Wait, it's really fluctuating this time. I think since I mentioned soft skills, people are choosing soft skills more. Technical skills are also very important.
Problem-solving skills for some reason are pretty low.
Yeah, not getting that much love.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna pause it and share with the audience. So you can see that, wow, I was pretty influential in terms of persuading you into believing soft skills. Well, they are, of course, very important.
They are.
But all of these pillars are evaluated during your interviews. And maybe problem-solving skills too, right? In a financial interview, you might get a hypothetical situation. In consulting, you get a case interview. And in tech, you get a coding interview. So these are all looking for. Yeah, could be anything. But these are skills that sound not so hard or sometimes daunting. And then they're looked for when you're looking for your first job, right? And then from what I heard, none of us really got super lucky and then landing a big name on our first shot. So I'd be curious to learn about how you guys landed your first job. Now that you're smiling, you go first.
Okay, so I think my background is a little bit different from everyone else's in the sense that when you're doing undergrad in India, you don't have the chance, or rather, not everybody does internships. Whereas in North America, people are obsessed with doing an internship every summer, right? So when you think about it, when I came to the US, I didn't have a single internship on my resume. All I had was projects. And I was competing with these candidates from North America who had like 6, 7 internships at top companies. And it was extremely, extremely daunting to even think about it. And I remember I started applying pretty early. Honestly, like I didn't even know what to do because I came in, I started school in August and then they said recruiting begins in September. I'm like, but I don't have anything on my resume. I don't even have a resume to apply with. So it was super, super stressful. But I think as the months passed, with the help of seniors and just talking to people, I got to know a bit more about the industry and application process and everything. And after probably 100 rejections, I got the interview from Bloomberg. And yeah, I just made sure that at every step I was doing my best and it worked out.
Yeah, thank you. I see that Brian had a smirk when you mentioned 6 internships in a row. So Brian, you want to expand on that and talk about how you got your first job? I think our patient is getting a bit impatient and getting into the juicy stuff. Let's keep it brief.
Okay, first full-time job, right?
Yeah, first internship also counts.
First internship also counts. Okay, this is I'll keep it brief. So my first internship was at an aerospace engineering company. My major was aerospace engineering. I hated the experience. I realized it was not for me. I hated it so much that I quit my internship and repeated an entire year of university to switch majors. So after doing that, I kind of like grinded for a full year and then managed to get my first tech internship at Google. And after that internship, I went back to the same team, and now I'm back on that same team. Yeah, we can talk more about sort of what enabled me to get that internship.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Sounds like you can build rocket ships. Ali, how about you?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about how I got my first real internship. But I had essentially two internships in my undergrad. One was at Manulife and one was at Goldman Sachs. And I think the biggest jump was the one at Goldman Sachs. So I'd love to talk about what essentially got me there. There were a little bit of my previous job at Manulife, but the biggest part of it was the fact that I had worked on a personal project with a few friends of mine, which was designing essentially a sport betting algorithm that would find like arbitrage, and it's essentially like a trading algorithm, but that applies it on sport betting. And when I presented this project in my resume and in my interview, they really liked it, and they thought it was something that made me different. And therefore, it's literally truly thanks to this project that I got my internship at Goldman Sachs.
Wow. So I hear projects, I hear quitting a major. My journey was, I think, similar to something you guys didn't share, which was a startup. So as you guys know, I didn't get anything after first year. So I built a platform to help students learn math more efficiently. And at the end, I got about a few thousand users, raised $300,000 seed funding. And that experience alone helped me first land my internship, and then got attention from BCG and later McKinsey, and maybe also Google. So my startup experience was kind of the defining moment of my previous career, to be honest. But the way we got here, it was not smooth, right? We had bumps. So I think it'd be great for us to share our most vulnerable or difficult moments. So how did we fail? I think I'm gonna start first because I want to be vulnerable first. I think there are 4 failures that really made me sad. Number one was, we talked about my startup. I did raise $300,000, but what I didn't tell you was I burned the money in 4 months and ran out of money, and the company went bankrupt. The second was I got rejected by Microsoft by 3 times. I failed the interview twice, and the last time they didn't want to look at my resume. Third was around BCG. I got rejected by BCG twice as well. And for people who don't know, that's Boston Consulting Group. And the 4 was even more brutal. I didn't even pass the first round of Bain company interviews. So that's my failure story. I'm sure there are more to come. Who wants to go next?
I can go.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll pick up after I quit my job and switched industries. So that year, you're supposed to look for an internship for the summer or for the following year. Throughout the year, I could not find a single PUI opportunity. I kept on failing coding interviews. It wasn't my original background, and I wasn't prepared enough. And it was just a very depressing time in my life. But thankfully, I came through. I studied online. I found different sources, found different people to help me. And, so after that failure, I managed to recover and prep. And then literally the end of August 2018 is when I got the acceptance from Google. And, 2 weeks later, and I would have started my 4th year semester with no impressive experience on my resume, and probably a very different story right now.
Lucky you.
Yeah, very lucky.
Nandana, what about you?
I'm still getting rejection emails.
Well, yeah. That says enough. How about you, Ali?
First of all, me too. I'm still getting rejection emails and suffering from the early failures in my academic career. I came out of school. I was a pretty good student in high school, but during my first year, unfortunately, I had countless poor grades, and and the board thinking that I would like fail certain classes, and I had to really like double down on it. And I'm still suffering, to be frank, like till today. However, I think that failures like happen to everyone and are part of the process. But the most important part is the steps that I took in order to like overcome these failures. And I'd love to share more of these. And these were like pretty simple, but essentially like after almost each rejection email that I got, I would try to contact the recruiters or contact my mentors to understand what I did wrong, what I could do better. And then essentially it would always come down to the same lessons, which was my resume is too similar to all the other people. My story is the same. So then I would try to always like think, how can I do things differently? Always, this is how I've been thinking since my first failures, and it led me to Goldman, to Bain, and all the way towards to like working with guys like Henry, Nandana, and Brian.
Well, you're flattering us, but you said that you always try to figure out what you could have improved on. So did you do it alone, or was there someone always there to help you?
I had the strong support of mentors that I had cultivated throughout the years, and I made sure that I still have it till today. And this is like part of that are just my friends, like all of you guys, and part of like people that I reached out to on LinkedIn. And the biggest part is probably the people that I worked with and that I maintain a good relationship with.
Wow. Also, I think, Brian, you also talked about people helped you. So what do you think the power of mentors are for you?
Yeah, I mean, the most immediate sort of obvious thing is that these mentors have been around more than you have. Like just the combined life experiences of different people. You haven't lived multiple lives to get the perspectives that they have. So for me, the way that panned out is, I could have spent months looking for, having no idea what I need to learn to get that internship. But what I did was I reached out to someone who was already there, who already knew how to get in, and sort of just got like an efficient plan set up on what I need to study, what I need to learn, exactly a game plan of what I need to do to get that internship, and that saved me literally months of planning. So yeah, if you reach out to the right mentor and the right person, then it could be hugely beneficial, I think.
Yeah. Nandana, how about you?
Yeah, I pretty much echo what Brian and Ali said. I did have mentors during my first year at grad school. That was when I understood when I had to start applying to companies, what my resume should look like, what companies are looking for, and of course, interview prep. And I made sure that I maintained good relationships with whoever I met at Bloomberg and all of the different networking events that I attended. And of course, Harry helped me a lot when it came to interview prep for Amazon with all of the lead code sessions and just prepping for algorithms, data structures. So yeah, mentors are not just for technical skills, but also as a support system, because this process is hard.
Yeah, as you said, it's hard. And in addition to Ali helping me getting McKinsey and Brian helping me getting Google, I think there are two other mentors who played an essential role for me landing McKinsey at the end. One was a friend at BCG. He's been coaching me for 2 years around how to build a deck, how to communicate, how to speak in a structured way, and how to think. And the second was I actually paid to get a communication coach who was an ex-McKinsey engagement manager. He actually told me how to tell stories in a way that can differentiate yourself. And I think he really pushed me from 85 to maybe 95 to push me above the hiring bar. And then I think he will join us in the coming weeks to talk about his stories. But with that, we understand the story of mentors, and then I appreciate you guys sharing your stories about how you get helped, and it's really heartwarming. But I think I want to take a turn and talk about how dire the current situation is, because it's not really looking good. I think there are 4 pieces of data I really want to share with the audience. One is last week, the unemployment rate in the States reached 15%, which is the highest after the Great Depression in the 30s. And we're, not me, more like according to McKinsey.com, a third of the US jobs are vulnerable. That means a third of jobs could be lost. And that also correlates to new jobs. So there's about 28% reduction in job postings in the States and about 30% in Canada. And there's just so many great companies doing layoffs. I know Groupon is laying off 2,800 at 44%. Uber is laying off 3,700 at 14%. Airbnb is laying off 25% of their workforce. So it's a tough world out there. So do you guys have other pieces of data that show how the situation is currently?
I think you said it all.
You said it all. Yeah. I don't think it can get worse.
Tough situation.
It is really tough, but I think we're here to provide help to students about how we can navigate this situation together, right? So I think the last part of the conversation I want to dedicate on what the students can do. So Ali, do you want to start sharing a few pieces of action items for students?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. And these are frankly not just for students, it's for everyone, including myself. But it's unfortunately like there's much less things to do, but it's also like the good part is that there's a lot of opportunities and free time to learn. So the first thing is like what I'm currently doing is I'm trying to pick up like a lot of new skills and teaching my friends a lot. I literally just got off the phone teaching my friend French, which was a great experience. And I'm starting to learn like new languages. But that's the first thing. Second thing, like this is more geared towards students, is I really advise to work on your own project. Now, it sounds cliche, but with the power of the internet, you can be wherever you want and build whichever company you would want to. And now truly is a great chance to do it. It would allow you to differentiate yourself on your resume. It would allow you to potentially succeed very well. And it's also just a great time to do it because everybody's on the internet. So I think these are the two main things that I'd like to focus on.
Thank you for sharing that. Nandana, do you have any thoughts that our fellow students can do?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Ali said. I think another thing that we haven't considered is once the situation gets better, there's going to be a lot more competition for these positions because of students losing their internships or jobs. They're going to start applying and it's going to be a lot more competitive. So yeah, I think it would be a great idea to take some time this summer to really work on yourself, your technical skills, to start networking with professionals, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, making those connections, leveraging those connections for when you want to start using them. And well, people are craving social interaction, so they're definitely gonna reply now, at least compared to before. So yeah, that is definitely one way to, I guess, make use of the summer.
Yeah, and Nandana actually has a pretty fancy system of reaching out on LinkedIn. We can do it in the Q&A part if students ask about it. But Brian, what do you think?
Yeah, along the same lines. I mean, if you look at the things we've been discussing, literally like what companies are looking for, it's the perfect time to sort of try to nail down some of those things, like get your technical skills up to speed for interviews through online courses or through prep, reaching out to find mentors, for example, tackling projects or entrepreneurial experiences. Yeah, I mean, if you can find like an opportunity to sort of sharpen all these things together, that would be even more ideal. But here's where efficiency is important because you don't have that much time, and once things sort of cool off, everyone will be racing to get their hands on the job market. So yeah, use your time wisely and seek out people who are experts, I guess, and try to learn as much as you can from them.
Yeah, I typically hold very unconventional views I think if there is a job for you, create one for yourself. That's typically my way. I would go for entrepreneurship every day. And then I think the second strategy from my side is to surround yourself with people you see yourself working with in 5 to 10 years, right? Be aspirational, be surrounded with people who can help you grow. And then actually, I think I want to share this with our audience. We actually designed something that I wish I had in my first year. So Molly, do you mind if I share my screen and share our ideas? All right, I guess that's a yes. So what I'm thinking is I wanted to work with people from, let's say, MBB, Goldman Sachs, and Tech Big Four to create something impactful on my resume, but with guidance, right? But in first year, I didn't have it. So what I'm envisioning and what we are thinking is to work in a team of 4 to develop, launch, and finally grow a business that has the ultimate guaranteed high impact on your resume. Again, I think the reason I got looked at by BCG, by Google, by McKinsey, somehow was related to that startup experience. And again, we talked about what the companies are looking for. So in this program, I'm thinking students should be empowered to improve on 4-fold. One is their technical skills. How can they solve problems, build financial models, do analytics? And second, as most people said, they want to improve their soft skills, right? And as well in this interaction, I think I long for connection with professionals at the tier of Ali, Brian, Nandana. I didn't have that. So I just hang out with me, myself, and I. And so with these mentors who are really aspirational, I believe your work can really mean something, can really make a difference. And then actually I heard this from a BCG partner, is launching your venture is one of the best ways to differentiate yourself against others. Because think about how many people would dare to do this on their own. I think it's a great learning opportunity, but we're still thinking about designing it. Open to suggestions, we can talk about it later, but I want to bring back to our current conversation around what students can do. And I think we've covered quite a lot, but I want to run the last poll before we go into Q&A. Is what do you want your mentor to help you with?
I think this is a different poll. This is about the summer program.
The summer program. Like, what do you want to? I think it's similar, right?
Yeah.
If you were to be a part of this, what do you want? Okay, I've lost my poll.
Seems like it's between impactful experience and networking opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then soft skills, not bad. Okay, let me share this. So if students were there to do something entrepreneurial, they want professional experience, networking with industry leaders. I'd be very curious of why this is number 1, to be honest. I love to follow up on that. And I think technical skills and soft skills are all important. But with that, Ali and Brian, if you have nothing else you want to share right now, I'd like to open the floor to Q&A and then see what wonderful questions our audiences come up with.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. The first question, I suspect is from Waterloo or one of the co-op focused schools. Do you find co-op helpful? To be honest, none of us actually did a co-op program, but we did internships. I think Ali did 2 or 3. We all did. So what do you guys think?
I'm happy to take this one. Yeah, internships are very helpful. Like I said, to me, it was a great way to have something on my resume to grow my network. and it really depends on where you are in your current academic career and your professional one, as well as what your ambitions are. But it could be the best thing to do. It could equally be bad because everybody does internships. So then your resume, it circles back. So that story that's really like, at least is stuck in me, that you become the same as everyone, and therefore it's hard to differentiate your pile in it's hard to differentiate yourself in a resume pile. So because of that, I think like internship are great. It's great to have like one or two. However, I do have to caveat that during your internship, it's not, and think that it's not enough to get the top positions, because it does not allow you to fully differentiate yourself. That's how I see it. That's only my personal opinion.
Yeah, I would follow up on that, but I promised that we wanted to open ourselves to calls with students. So I'm sharing a Google form in the group chat for people who were so grateful that you guys stay up till the end. So feel free to fill it up. I'm gonna try to look at them and then send out invites tonight. And then we're gonna share a Calendly link, and it will be first come, first serve. And we can't do everyone, so we'll select a number of you. So back to the question of co-op, I think it's pretty apparent that it's pretty helpful. So I want to move on to the next question. So the question goes, what was your duty on your first internship? I think, Brian, you had a really interesting perspective because you did aerospace and and Google. So what was it like for you?
Oh, okay. I can talk about the contrast between the two.
Sure.
And this goes back to what the previous question as well, and the importance of co-op. So for me, for example, my first co-op made me realize that I didn't want to be an aerospace engineer. Without that, I would have graduated with the degree and it would have been too late to pivot. But yeah, my responsibilities as an aerospace engineer, I guess the industry is a little outdated, I would say, from my experience. So as an intern, you're an intern in the traditional sense. So I was doing things that, you know, other people didn't want to do, basically, like take care of docs and write up some Excel that wasn't too impactful or wasn't too exciting or mentally stimulating. I was manually installing sensors on like $5 million engines, but like on the shop floor with other technicians and putting sensors on and designing a process. And, you know, I suppose it could have led to impact in the long term, but it's a stark contrast from the experience I had at Google during my first internship. So my first internship at Google, I was responsible for optimizing Google notifications on the Android app. And that like short story led to almost $100 million in increased annual revenue for the company. So yeah, compared to installing sensors on engines, it was shocking for me. So
Wait, did you get any commission from the 100 million?
No, I asked for 0.1%, but the manager wouldn't give me anything. It's fine.
You lost. Ali, I know your internship experience are so much different from Brian's. So what did you do during your internships?
Yeah, I had like same as Brian in the sense where I had very different experiences. In some of them, I had actually a pretty big impact on the team, particularly at Goldman Sachs. I was designing this one like stress test, and at that time it was the US-China trade war. Not to design the stress, I was part of the team that designed the stress test to see what would be the impact of the trading of that on the Goldman's balance sheet. And this was like a great experience because I learned a lot, did a lot of analysis. And then I had like other tasks that were less, I guess, intellectually stimulating, which was hours and hours of just updating Excel models with, here is the data, here, could you just refine the Excel models? Similarly at Manulife, it was a lot of, and mostly this of just updating the models, but it was still a good learning opportunity.
Great. All right. I think I want to move on to the next question is, we talked about entrepreneurship. No, actually, I talked about entrepreneurship a lot. And then the question goes, would entrepreneurship be something that recruiters really look into? I think we will have a better answer in about 10 minutes, as we will have a recruiter from Amazon joining us in 12 minutes. So I think he'll be the better one to answer. But the answer I got for my interview was, yo, man, I picked up your resume from the pile because you had that cool startup. So that's the reason I got my first BCG interview. Next question is around, would entrepreneurship be a great way to network with others? I want to leave that question to Ali first, because you're a networking star.
No, I mean, well, thank you for the praise, but I think star is a big overstatement. But yeah, I think entrepreneurship is a great way to network for three main reasons. The first one is because entrepreneurs tend to help each other a lot. So when you're an entrepreneur and you say message another entrepreneur, he's very likely to help you compared to other industries. The second one is because it allows you to differentiate yourself. So for instance, I look at now when I'm on the other side of the table where I have students sending me a lot of LinkedIn messages trying to have coffee with me. The ones that I like to have coffee with the most are the ones that are different from the others. And these are essentially like ones that either create their own internship experience, have very different internship experience than others, or often like have entrepreneurship experience that make me want to talk to them. And the third one, it's because at the end in these corporate jobs, and I'm sure Brian and Harry can testify on it, but a lot of people look up to entrepreneurs. At the end of the day, like I forgot the exact stat, and Brian, keep me honest here, but I read something that at Google around like 50% of the people that left Google wanted to start their company. So when they look at a resume and they see that someone actually did it and tried to, or at least tried to do it and has same goals, it really pushes them to think highly of that person, just because they still have these ambitions, even if they are at the Googles, at the McKinsey of the world. And frankly, like all us four are still very interested in this entrepreneurship aspect. That's where we see ourselves in a few years or a few decades, and therefore very attracted to people that do it too.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think I got my first internship by just co-emailing in a CTO in a startup in Toronto. So networking, yes. And also I see a very interesting question is high GPA important in university? I think this really depends on the industry, because I know that Google recently removed the requirement for college. So I guess for tech, not so much. But Ali, based on your experience, what do you think about banking and consulting in terms of GPA requirement?
So I think the requirement is like slightly higher than for other industries. And it's a bit of a black box, to be frank, where no one really knows what the cutoff is, and there are a lot of rumors. But what I can guarantee you is that if you have a high GPA or not, it's not the only factor that will play a role. If you have a stellar resume, no matter what your GPA is, you will get the interview. Similarly, if you have a very high GPA, but not a good network, not a good resume, you will not get the interview. So I think it's a combination of multiple factors. GPA is one of them, but definitely not the only one. Meaning that it could harm you, or it could help you, but it's not a dead end.
Yeah, and then thank you for that. A question from student is around referral. So how does referral work? The student says, I found it quite abrupt if I just find anyone don't personally know to give me a referral for a position. Nandana, I think you have a really good strategy for this. Want to share?
Sure. Well, let me think about what I did specifically. So I made sure to build a connection with that person right from the start. And like the recruiter who is going to come in probably 10 minutes, Sean will tell you, it's asking for a referral, you're asking them to do you a favor. It's basically, like he terms it, it's like a social bank where you're taking something out of the bank, but at the same time, you have to put something back in. And if you don't invest in the relationship and you don't invest in getting to know the person, then why on earth would they want to give you a referral, right? So it really is important to build that connection from the start, to be genuinely curious and interested in what they're doing, who they are as a person. And every time I reach out, I go to their LinkedIn profile. I make sure that I research the company that they're working for and the position that I want a referral for, and how my skills and my profile connect to that. And I craft a message based on that, and that's what I send to them. And I don't know if it's just for tech, but I think I've pretty much gotten a referral from every single person I've reached out to in this way.
Great. I think I want to add on that is one of the good ways is to ask for a call and get them to know you personally. And I have a 3-part strategy of how to do that outreach. And then during that call, listen really actively and with empathy. The more you talk, the less chance you might have of landing a referral. We'll talk more about that later. And then next part is around, could you explain more about how to build meaningful networks and how to maintain relationships with impactful people, meta events? I think that's really similar to what Nandana said. I think considering we have 5 minutes left, do we want to talk about something else? I think we can talk about this. What are the important characteristics of good communication looks like in a work setting? Ali, you're smiling. Oh, no, do you want to add?
I think Ali and I can go for this. Ali, do you want to let your thoughts known first?
Yeah, the
Sure.
7:38:55.
Sure. The question is how communication is in work settings, right? Good.
Yeah. What does good communication look like?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things, and it's a lot. I'm still learning, to be honest. But from what I've learned so far, it involves good written and verbal communication. For both of them, it involves having saying the right stuff at the right time to your supervisor and to the people below you. For instance, if you just update the model, if you just did this or that, and soliciting your supervisor when you need help. So it's the timing and what you say. And then the other big part of it is how you say it. If you just did a good piece of work and brag about it, it will not sound good. You will sound arrogant. However, if you do good work, a good piece of work, and find a way to say it in a humble way, you will be very rewarded for it. So I think it's a combination of all these factors. But Nandana, yeah, please share your thoughts.
Yeah, I think this also relates a little bit to cultures, right? Because Asian culture, we're not really used to bragging. Whereas North American or Westernized culture, it really matters that you let your work be known. So I think you have to learn the art of humble bragging, which is subtle, but it is necessary in order to get noticed.
So are you saying our students should look at subtle Asian traits?
Subtle Asian traits plug, yes, of course, always. Subtle Asian traits is the best group ever.
Okay, let's try a few more questions before Sean joins us. This question is actually quite...
Sorry, go on.
Quite interesting. Is how do you find a mentor to help you start your own business? I've been asking myself that question for many times. Any tips?
Me, I just ask Henry O'Brien. So turn the question back to you.
I ask Ali.
We all ask each other. I think LinkedIn is a great tool for this. I mean, especially if you're trying to start your own business, reach out to people who've done it before. Reach out to startup co-founders, to vice presidents, and you might feel intimidated or scared to reach out to someone like that. The reality is, if you reach out with a compelling enough message and you make an emotional connection between you and the person, a lot of people actually want to talk to aspiring entrepreneurs and students and want to give them advice and feel that that's a good thing. So yeah, you'd be surprised the kind of responses you get. So that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, and one thing to always remember is people love talking about themselves.
Yeah.
They absolutely love it. So just make it about the other person as much as you can and just develop your active listening skills.
Yes, I echo that. And then I would rephrase the question as, how do I find mentors? Because during your entrepreneur journey, you'll need many mentors to teach you different aspects. For example, I learned from Ali how to solve problems. I learned from Brian how to lead code. I learned from Nandana how to leverage my empathy. So you need a variety of mentors to teach you different things. I think now we're at time. It's time to hand over the mic to Molly and introduce our second guest, Sean. Oh, hey, Sean, you're here. Hello.
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 How are you guys?
Great. We're good. Molly, do you want to say something before we transition?
No, I'm okay.
Fantastic. Nandana, do you want to take over from here?
Yeah, so let me give you guys a quick introduction about Sean. So I actually met Sean through my journey at Amazon. I was lucky enough to connect with him, and he was my recruiter throughout the entire process. And we ended up becoming great friends through that process. And now I literally send him GIFs like every day using Amazon Chime or cat videos. But anyway, so I think he is one of the best recruiters that I have worked with through all of my application process in the past 2.5 years. And a couple of reasons for that is he knows the industry extremely well, and he will tell you exactly how to network, what to say during behavioral interviews, how to bring forward those skills. And he's extremely passionate about the company that he works for. So yeah, do you want to take a minute to talk about yourself, Sean?
Sure, of course. Hey, everyone. Hey, so yeah, my name is Sean. You know, like many of you, I'm actually from Taiwan myself. Came to the US when I was 13, and I've been living here ever since. You know, I studied psychology in college, and you know, that was just something that I was really, really interested in, and that actually has sort of helped me a lot with my career so far. You know, and after college, like many of you, you know, I feel like kind of where you guys are, I didn't really know what to do, and I was very passionate actually about personal training and working out. So actually, that was one of my first jobs that I've taken. You know, so I was doing that, and then also, you know, helping them with sales as well. You know, selling personal training packages. And one of my senior managers at the time, he said, "Hey, Sean, listen, if you can sell personal training packages, you know, which is basically people are paying you a couple $1,000, you know, and then they're walking out of your office with nothing but a little booklet and a hope, you know, saying that, hey, like, you know, you're gonna get in shape, then you really can sell anything." And that really kind of inspired me quite a lot. And I later on took that, and I wanted to learn more about marketing, and then also learn more about recruiting as well. I kind of actually fell into recruiting because that's actually something that I was already kind of helping one of my friends to do in my early career. You know, so I've been recruiting ever since, probably for the last 3.5, probably about 4 years. You know, work at a couple of different companies, and then you know, most recently, my most recent position, I'm working at Audible and Amazon. So that's kind of how I met Nandana. So. Mm-hmm.
That's great. So it sounds like you've been in recruiting for quite a bit, and you just kind of jumped into it because you wanted to learn more about recruiting. So when you first see a candidate's resume, I'm sure you get hundreds of resumes. So what are the high-level areas that you focus on?
Yeah, so that's definitely a really good question. When we look at a resume, there are definitely a couple of things that we look at, right? And I personally work with people who are new grads, such as yourselves, and then all the way up to like C-level executives, people like that. So it really depends on, you know, like on the position that I'm working on. But I would definitely say when we look at, you know, if we're looking at a new graduate, you know, definitely sometimes we do look at the school, you know, because sometimes the school do give you, you know, like it does showcase a little bit more about yourself. And then, you know, we also look at, you know, whether or not, you've taken on any like meaningful internships, anything like that. But besides those things, I would definitely say like, the size of the project, of things that you worked on, the impact, right? Like, have you made any impact in your previous positions? And then also one thing that I would say is I see a lot of resumes with people who are literally copy and pasting their previous job descriptions. That really does not help anybody's resumes at all. You sort of want to, I would say, quantify your experiences, right? You almost want to break down yourself into a set of accomplishments. And what do I mean by that is, like, hey, for example, like I helped my company increase their sales by like 50%, right? Like that's a very measurable number to be able to showcase to your interviewer, or the recruiter you're talking to, because that's what they understand, as opposed to, if you're only saying, like I went to my job every day, I send out a lot of emails, like I spoke to a lot of people on the phone, like that doesn't really mean anything, because probably a lot of people do that every single day. But how does your day-to-day work on a high level? How are you making an impact in the business? And how are you, like, how is that helping your business? How is that helping yourself? How's that helping the people, in your office and in your direct team? That's kind of what you want to think about.
It sounds like compared to impact, the brand name or where you worked at really wasn't that important. Do you agree?
So brand name definitely does give some credibility, right? So I will agree for sure. Because like when we look at a resume, if we see a company like, hey, this guy worked at Google, this guy worked at Amazon, right? So we understand that those companies have a pretty high bar for them to hire someone, right? So they obviously have to have gone through a pretty grueling process, I would say. So yes, that does help. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter as much, whether the brand name is there or not. And I don't want a lot of you guys to think, like I have to work at a big company to really make an impact, because that's definitely not the case. So yes, it does help, but that's definitely not the whole picture. A recruiter, or I would say a good recruiter, will look at everything, and then even your interviewer, they will interview you on like your competency to see whether or not you're going to be somebody that could handle the job that they want to hire you for.
And on
Right.
that note of impact is a broad term. How do you like measure impact? Would it be, like you said, through like quantitative metrics, for example, launched this project that had like the increased revenue by X% or generated X number of new users? Or would it be like more abstract way of doing it? I'm curious, and I'm, to be honest, selfishly asking this for my resume too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, definitely. That's a really good question. So I guess let me, so one of the stories that I like to share, and these are two of my candidates that I've spoken to pretty recently. So I've been working with multiple different, engineering managers. And one of the questions that we do ask them, right? And then you guys can also evaluate this for yourself, right? So Audible has a particular set of things called people principle. And one of them is called activate caring. And really what that is like, how are you able to be selfless and be, genuinely helpful in other people's careers, right? So story number one, right? So this person that I spoke to, basically, he said, hey, I have a new colleague, and this colleague just started our job. He's kind of falling behind, right? And he's really not having a lot of success so far because it's really new. There's a lot of things that he needs to get used to and sort of, help, like he needed to catch up before he could really, sort of like hit the ground running. So this guy, he took the initiative to reach out to this person. He took the initiative to really help him with his career, right? And he helped him pick things up. And then, this guy also, his colleague, this new person who also, he had to take a trip over the weekend. This guy was like, okay, if he has to work, then he probably wouldn't be able to do that. So he took on that job and, he helped the person out. So he saved this person's weekend basically, right? So if you're looking at it from a big scale, how many people is that impacting?
Just
right?
one person.
Yeah, that's one person. So yes, that is a good example of what we're looking for, but the impact is very small. But another person that we spoke to, he gave a really good example. And what he said was, So I work with multiple different cross-functional teams at my job, right? And one of the things is they always have to generate these data, and they have to spend a lot of time writing up those data for them to plug in to really test the system. And he found out that, across all the different teams, everybody's doing that, and it was taking a couple hours a week. So instead of, having them go through that, what he ended up doing was he created a system. He wrote a script that was able to just generate these like fake data that they're able to just plug into their system and just test out the system pretty automatically and without much thought, right? So what happened was this thing ended up, being something that they implemented across the company, right? And then this guy also said, hey, you know what? This is actually something that we're not making a profit out of. I might as well open source this. So they ended up open sourcing it. And then, a lot of different company ended up taking on and using his script, which really helped with, across multiple different companies. And then also on top of that, because they open sourced it, so a lot of really good programmers, really good developers, they ended up using it. And, it helped the company with, sort of like putting their name out there. And because of that, there was some trickling effect that came back is people knew their name and they're like, hey, actually you guys are doing some pretty cool things. Let me, can I work for you guys? So the impact in that story, right? Like not only did he help his immediate team, he helped out the entire company. He also helped out the greater like community of programmers and developers that he doesn't even work with directly. And because of that, he also helped out more people on top of that and helped his company bring in more quality people. So the impact of that is really powerful and really wide. So that's kind of what I mean by that.
Yeah, that's very helpful. And would you say that this is, I know you've been in the tech space, but would you say that this is across industries or mainly focused on tech? And if yes, how would it differ from industries based on what you hear?
Right. Okay. So that's a really good question. I would say definitely this will be impactful across multiple different industries. This is not just tech. It's just that my job specifically, I work with more tech people, and I would say the major difference between what I just talked about in tech or not in tech is when in tech people look for more hard skills as opposed to when it comes to like industries outside of tech, is most of the time I would say, especially for somebody that is pretty new, they're going to be focused more on the soft skills. But anything that you can quantify as your impact, that impact upon, among just yourself, or your immediate circle, I would say that, that's something that you want to think about. Like how many people are you impacting and how many people are you helping because of your actions, or because of your work. Mm-hmm.
Amazing insights. Yeah, I just wanted to say first, thank you so much for being here, Sean. It's a great opportunity to hear what you have to say on this topic. I had a question. So when you're done with the sort of resume screening process and say you invite the candidate in for the initial behavioral interviews or the first round of interviews, mm-hmm. what do you look for then? And just like no details, no Amazon specific secrets.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Brian. So what do I look for when I'm speaking to the candidate, or what do I look for when the candidates are talking to their first round of interviewers?
I'd say both would be pretty insightful.
Okay, cool. So I would say when, let's just use my example. So when I'm talking to a candidate, definitely, I would say I'm looking for their communication skills, right? I'm also looking for their perspective, like how do they approach a particular problem? I usually like to ask really open-ended questions, to kind of understand like how does this person think, and then and I know this is kind of Amazon, but also a lot of company has implemented this as well. They like to ask open-ended questions, like pretty scenario-based, like, hey, tell me about a time like this happened. Like, how did you deal with that? Like, what was your thought process? How did you come to that conclusion? Right. So those type of things are things I would definitely look for. And then on top of that, again, I would say I really do look for the like the size, the scope, and the impact of the things that you've done in the past. Right. If if you're looking to get into a big company, for example, Google or Amazon, like they might deal with things that are like a lot of requests every single second. So, let's say if you work on a project that only supported 500 people, but Amazon's looking for somebody that can support up to 50,000 requests per second, like the scope and the size doesn't really match. So that there'll also be something else that I look for. If it doesn't match, then I probably would not want to move forward with that person. Right.
Amazing. Awesome insights. So it sounds like soft skills and impact, two main factors there. Yes. With that, like, do you have any suggestions for, what students could possibly do this summer to make themselves more competitive for positions like this?
Yeah, of course. So one thing that I would say, and this sort of applies to probably even people who are more seasoned, definitely take the time to invest in yourselves. Like read business books. Read books that are gonna be. So I mean, for me, reading is a huge part of how I got so much better at what I do. So that's something that I definitely recommend. There are so many books out there. You can even ask people, who are in positions that you want to be in, as for book recommendations, things that they really help them get to where they are today. Also, I think networking is going to be very, very important. Like reach out to people, again, they're in positions that you want to be. I think like one of the things that somebody mentioned earlier, having mentors, I think that was also something for me that I would highly, highly suggest. And reason why is, so I think some of the most successful people in the world, they all have mentors, right? If you look at Kobe Bryant, if you look at Michael Jordan, right? These people are like the top 1% of what they do. However, they still have coaches, they still have mentors, they still have people that they work with so closely. Some people are like, oh, if I look for a mentor, like, does that mean that I'm not good enough? Does that mean that, I'm less capable? That's definitely not the case. Some of the most successful people in the world, they have people that are always, leading them, guiding them. That's why large companies even have like multiple chairs and boards to really sort of help them guide their directions. So, so those are a couple areas I would say.
Awesome. I'll hand it over to Nandana.
Yeah, so again, Sean, thank you so much. And I've learned a lot from all the things that you've said. And, I definitely would have a better idea of what to do if I was a student and, the summer was coming up. So just to recap, you mentioned that, impact is really important when it comes to the resume, and students can best make use of the summer by reading books and networking with professionals, finding mentors, and also just building their own projects and trying to create that impact by themselves. So I would like to talk a little bit about a summer program that we're building, which helps students achieve and build all of the things that you mentioned. So they're going to get that impactful experience. They're going to be able to network with, professionals from top companies, and they're going to be able to develop their soft skills. With that, we actually have a question for you from the previous session. Let me find that question actually. So I think it's something, I think it's
around what can we do if we don't have any internship experience from before and I don't have anything lined up for the summer.
Yeah.
Yep. Wow. Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think, like some things that you guys can think about is, definitely you can offer some pro bono work, or even building up projects for yourselves. Again, kind of think about, what it is that you want to do and where you want to be, and find creative ways, to be able to, find creative ways to be able to have those experiences, that's really going to make sense for you, right? Like even reaching out, working for individuals that might be able to help you and to really guide you to be able to have those experiences will be great. Joining a summer program like this, I also think will be another really impactful way, because, you are learning and you're investing in yourself. I definitely understand that times are really tough right now, but that doesn't mean that you just lay down, you give up, and you don't do anything. It means that, like, maybe that's what other people might be doing, but how can you position yourself to make sure that, once everything is over, that you're ahead of everybody else? That's really what I will say, to really think about. And that's the best suggestion that I would have.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, Harry, do you want to continue with the questions?
Sure. Students also have other fantastic questions. As our title suggests, we want to talk about the job market in fall 2020 and beyond. So Sean, from your perspective, what do you think has changed in the job market, and how will fall 2020 look like in terms of employment?
Right. Wow. So yeah, that is a really good question, because the job landscape itself definitely has changed quite tremendously, especially with current events. So I would say last year in 2019, or at the end of 2019, the employment rate across all industries, it was, I think, a little bit between 1.2 to 1.5%. And based on current events, I think right now the employment rate is 14.9%, which pretty much shot up quite tremendously. So definitely a lot of people, and especially myself working in this industry, basically every day I'm talking to people who just lost their jobs. I'm just talking to people who are like really, really great, qualified, intelligent, and like very, very capable people. But this is definitely things that are not within their control, that there's not a whole lot that they can do. Especially I would say for the travel and for the hotel sort of industries, even airline as well, right? So I don't have a lot of insight in what it will look like for the fall, because based on science, we don't really have a timeline on what's going to happen, and whether or not we're going to be able to, I guess, return to a quote unquote like normal sort of work environment. So what I would say is the market is eventually going to come back up. Like these industries are going to sort of return back to as much normal as possible. And then that's what you guys want to make sure that you're going to be ready for when once again these companies start hiring, once they become more profitable again. And then the other thing too that I would suggest to really think about is right now every single company are working remotely, right? There's a lot of company that either do not have that that particular capability to be able to do so, or they simply did not want to do so. They think that working on site is kind of the only way for them to do their business. But now that we're seeing that that's definitely not the case. So one thing I think the trend is going to be, people are going to start thinking about how to work remotely. So how do you showcase your own independence, and how do you showcase what you can do while you are working at home? I think those are going to be some very important factors to really consider.
Thank you. I think that's really insightful. And if we have time, we'll consult you on how to work remotely. But let's say there's a candidate asking that having bigger impact is great, right? It's beneficial, but when things start, usually they're small. And what kind of approaches can they take to increase their impact?
Okay. What kind of things can people do to increase their impact, right? Okay. Wow. That's actually a really, really good question. I don't think I ever thought about that. But if I'm just sort of like jumping into that, I would say, once again, think about your work, think about your audience, right? Like, who are you making these impact on, right? Like for example, if you're writing a article, or if you're building a project, like who's your end user? Think about your end user. Think about the your customers. Like who are the people that you're benefiting, right? And one thing that I've sort of learned from my personal business coach is that the bigger the question, the bigger the problem, the bigger the impact that you can make. So what are some ways for you to really solve a problem? Right. For example, Airbnb, they thought, hey, what is the best way for us to provide very authentic experiences all around the world? instead of people, going and living in hotels and paying all these fees, like, is there a way for us to offer something different? So that was their mission. That was sort of what they set out to solve, and then some of these bigger companies also as well, right? Like, so I think the questions that you ask will also impact sort of the directions that you go. So it comes down to, like, what questions are you asking yourself, and who are you working for, and who are you impacting, who are you benefiting?
Absolutely. So in short, looking at the demand of the users, and then one of our other audience members is asking, can you just sum up in maybe 1 or 2 sentences what Amazon's really looking for from a candidate?
Wow.
Million dollar question.
So, yes, it definitely is. And it's really, really hard to answer that question, because I work with so many different recruiters, and we try to answer those questions. We look at, so this is actually really interesting. This is a conversation I had recently. Spoke with another recruiter. He does mobile recruiting as well. He helps people that build mobile apps, right? And we look at all the data in the last 3 years, like, who did we actually hire? What schools did they come from? What countries did they come from? What degrees did they have? What school they went to? Like, we looked at basically everything, like any previous interview history, what companies, and really at the end of the day, there was no answer. Like, it's really hard to sort of quantify that. But what I would say probably, again, it comes down to whether or not you have work, again, those 3 words: size, scope, and impact, right? So those are really the 3 major things that they look for. You could be coming from a different country that, this is your first job in the US, they also hire you if you are able to take on the job, or you could be a veteran that's worked 20 years in this field, and they will still hire you. So it's really hard. I know that's really probably not the answer that you're looking for. But it comes down to whether or not, I guess, you understand how to put yourself out there. How do you connect yourself genuinely with another person, with a recruiter, with your interviewer, and really, have you studied for the job that you're interviewing for? Like, do you know what you're interviewing for, and do you know what they're looking for? And these data points can be unlocked by asking some really strong, valuable, and really good questions, I would say.
And you mentioned connecting with the recruiters. What are some characteristics of the people or the conversations that you had that made you really connect with potential recruits?
Right. Yeah. So that's definitely another really good question. One thing that I would say is most of these large companies, right, even smaller companies, really, when they are building out a team, like they. And also this kind of depends on internal or external recruiters. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more on the internal recruiter perspective, because that's kind of what I'm doing. In internal recruiters means that you work and you represent one company specifically. So typically the process is, we will sit down with the hiring manager. The hiring manager will be talking to the recruiting team about, hey, this is what we're looking for. This is what the team is missing. And these are sort of what we prefer. And these are the must-haves, and these are the nice-to-haves, right? So I would say a lot of recruiters are not going to be super, super technical, or not even technical, but like some of them may not know the job that well. So sometimes on the job, we will learn as we're talking to candidates, like what the industry looks like, what we're doing, things like that. So I think you coming from a place of sort of like a partnership with a recruiter will be really good. Like whether or not, you can speak the recruiter's language, whether or not you can talk the tech or talk about the hard skills. I think those things are going to be very important. But again, one thing I would say, it comes down to your soft skills. It comes down to your attitude. How do you approach something, right? And then usually one of the questions that I think is going to be very important is when the recruiter asks you, hey, what do you know about our company, right? Like, for example, if I ask people like, hey, what do you know about Audible? And if they only tell me, oh, you guys do audiobooks and you guys are part of Amazon, right? That's not really a great answer. You kind of want to be able to provide more depth, like do your homework, know why you want to interview for that company. like understand what they value. How do they evaluate somebody? And if you don't know, that's fine. You can also ask. But that's what I would suggest, when you set up a phone call with a recruiter, find out what the company does first. Find out, if you can find out what team they're hiring for, and what are, definitely go over the job description. So jumping into that call, you understand what you understand like sort of how to guide that conversation on your end as well.
Thank you, Sean. Due to time limit, let's aim for one last question.
Sure.
So the question goes, do companies prefer to see the candidate having worked on a variety of positions throughout past internships, or just demonstrate a person's commitment to one single type of job or at the same company?
Wow. That is also a very, very good question. So when, and I will say this, when a recruiter and when a hiring manager is looking at a resume, right? If you have really good tenure at your previous companies, that's definitely something really great that we definitely look for. Sometimes, if you like at a company for about anywhere between 2 to 5 years, like that's some pretty strong tenure. And, I know the hiring manager definitely will prefer that. But, I think especially for early career, that's going to be something really hard to say, really hard to quantify. So I would say it really depends on how senior you are. So the more junior you are, the more wide and more diverse sort of experiences that you have, I would definitely say that's going to be better. But as you progress into mid-level to senior level, meaning anywhere between 5 to maybe 15 years of experience in your field, then it's definitely a little bit more preferred that you have better tenure at the companies that you work for. However, the one thing that comes down to too is, if you had a legitimate reason for leaving your company, definitely share that with a recruiter, definitely share that with a hiring manager. For example, right now, the COVID-19 layoffs, that's not something you can control. So if you only started that company for 3 months and then you got laid off, like that's definitely a really legitimate and really good reason to share. So that's not something that you should be like either, I would say, ashamed of or something you're trying to hide. Just have an open channel of communication with the person that you're talking to.
Great. Thank you so much, Sean. I think we're at time, so I'm handing it back to Molly.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sean. Okay, I will introduce our following workshop and panel topic to the students. So I will speak Chinese, if that's okay. 明天的话呢，我们会有一个 workshop，我们限制人数是100人。当然了，就是因为我们前2天大家在抢这个名额的时候，发现非常多学生非常渴望这个名额，想要去跟导师沟通一下，能不能 open 更多的 spot 给我们的学生。那我会在今天结束之后再跟我们导师去商量一下。那明天的 topic 呢是如何规划你的暑假生活以及你的未来生活。那同样的，在下周。我们同样的周6时间晚上9点钟，导师也是有一个限制 limit 的一个 workshop， 是如何去通过这个 networking 的一些技巧，让你得到更多 referral 的机会。接下来的话也有一些面试的workshop， 比如说 case interview、tech interview 的辅导。那也是希望同学可以在明天跟下周的同一时间参加我们的这个讲座。如果学生今天还有一些问题，我觉得没有回答到的话也没有关系。那我们 hiring 导师在这个 chat box 里面要给大家发一个链接，那这个链接大家可以去填一下，然后我们会根据这个链接填的一些信息分配导师给到大家。对，就是这个链接大家可以去勇敢的填一下。那我们会筛选一些学生出来，跟我们导师有一个1对1的电话的咨询。对，那我们今天就非常感谢各位同学来参加我们今天的讲座。如果大家对明天的 workshop， 那我刚刚有提到明天的 workshop 是在晚上9点钟。对，明天 workshop 的话，大家需要查一下自己的邮件。我们抽到这些名额的学生，你们会收到一个 email 上会通知大家明天参与的这个方式。有一点需要大家记住的是，这个 Zoom 的名字一定要改成自己在这个填写的这个表单上的名字，因为我们是限制人数的嘛，所以大家要参加的话，我们会1对1的去进行一个筛选。 我们会一开始把大家放到 waiting room， 不过不用担心，如果你的名字确实是出现在我们表单上的话，我们会让你进来的，这样也是比较公平的，希望大家可以理解。所以明天一定要是按时到场，好吧？好，非常感谢大家对，也非常感谢我们的导师们。好，Harry， 你这边还有什么要作为结束语跟大家嘱咐的吗？好的，那我们今天就先这样，好吗？那我们明天晚上大家抢到名额的学生，我们明天晚上9点钟再见。好，剩下的学生我们还是下周同一时间，辛苦大家。好的，那我这边就先结束 meeting 了。
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.